Hi, my name is Kirsten McKenna. Thank you for joining me for the session on initiating calm and control, something we could all definitely use at the moment during COVID-19. I'm a leadership and performance consultant and an expert in well-being. I've also identified 3 things below my name and title in the circles that I'm most proud of in the last 12 months. Now, pride is an interesting emotion. It's a positive emotion that contributes to our resilience, and I'll tell you more about that in a few slides. I'd like you to think about 3 things that you're most proud of in the last 12 months. They could be small things or big things, just things that made an impact on you, and that when you reflected upon them, you thought, I'm really proud of those moments in my life. Now, our current situation is one fueled with volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And that's summarized in the acronym VUCA, which we've recently borrowed from the military. The military used it to describe the state of the world post-Cold War because it was so volatile, it was so uncertain, it was so complex, and it was so ambiguous. And at the moment, that's the way we're describing our world. Because of this, the primary emotions and feelings that we're encountering are uncertainty and fear. This is accompanied with anxiety, stress, worry, panic, rumination, and a number of other negative emotions. Negative emotions stick to us like Velcro versus positive emotions that we treat as Teflon. What we want to do is encourage everyone to experience more of those positive emotions so that they aren't holding on to these negative ones. So what's actually happening when we're experiencing stress and anxiety and an overwhelm of uncertainty? It's impacting the functions that take place in our brain. So the first thing that happens is we experience a flurry of stress hormones, including cortisol, adrenaline, and norepinephrine. This can ultimately lead to hyperactivity within the amygdala. The amygdala is the fight or flight center within our brain. It's the reptilian part of our brain, and it acts before thinking. When there is overactivity in our amygdala or our limbic system, what it leads to or can lead to is something known as sympathetic nervous system dominance. Now, sympathetic nervous system dominance is essentially when our sympathetic nervous system takes over. And it takes over from our parasympathetic system, which is our rest and digest system. It's essentially as though you have your foot on the gas pedal and don't take an opportunity to let up. Whereas when your parasympathetic nervous system is activated, it acts as the brake, and it releases positive neurotransmitters such as acetylcholine, which counteract those stress hormones. So we need to definitely be finding opportunities to activate our parasympathetic nervous system. All of these things have an impact on us physically, mentally, and emotionally. Physically, it affects our immune system, our digestive system, and our cardiovascular system. But when we do activate that parasympathetic nervous system, we experience those positive neurotransmitters or hormones, which initiate our relaxation response. What we'd like to avoid is developing neural pathways based on the feelings of stress, anxiety, rumination, and so on. Because what happens when we regularly go to those places, when we regularly ruminate and overthink and worry, it gets embedded within our neural pathways within our brain. It's like habit formation. So the more often we worry and panic and ruminate and stress about things, the more likely we're going to commit those same behaviors in the future. And that leads to us being more reactive, we're always on edge, and we're not tapping into the best part of our brains. And this is what we essentially want to prevent. So what does that mean for you and the impact it can have on your performance? When our limbic system within the reptilian brain takes over, leading to that sympathetic nervous system dominance, blood flow is directed to that area of the brain away from an area called the prefrontal cortex, which sits right behind your forehead. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for executive functions such as decision-making, planning, prioritizing, focusing, concentrating, and a number of other executive functions. And so essentially, when we're stressed or when we're feeling anxious, we are removing access to the executive center of the brain, to the center that's rational, that solves problems, that regulates our emotions. And so what we'd like to do is make sure that that doesn't happen. We'd like to increase the blood flow to that area of the brain and decrease blood flow to our reptilian brain or our limbic center. Essentially, your thinking has a lot to do with what happens to you physically. Your mind takes shape gradually from what you routinely rest your mind upon. Similar to the quote from Buddha, what you think, you become. So you have to create an awareness surrounding your thoughts so that you catch yourself when you're in those moments of ruminating and overthinking and catastrophizing, and change your way of thinking. Make small adjustments. So the first thing I recommend in order to initiate calm and control during this challenging period is implementing structure into your day. And structure is really important, particularly for those of us who aren't used to working from home. For those of us who have a number of distractions within our homes, which is preventing us from maintaining the structure that we're used to in the workplace. And structure starts first and foremost in the morning. You want to create a calm foundation in your mornings so that you can take control of your day and carry that calm throughout your day. So you're creating a calm foundation. And you can do this through a number of activities, such as breathing in order to activate your parasympathetic nervous system through that vagus nerve. The vagus nerve starts at the base of your brain and your brainstem and goes right down into your abdomen. And when it's activated, it triggers our relaxation response and gives us that flurry of positive neurotransmitters. So through simple, deep breathing, you can activate that. Through meditation, through creating an intention for your day. Other things that I recommend you do each morning is exercise. Create non-negotiables for your day. Make sure you have structure throughout your day. Schedule meetings, calls, schedule opportunities to have a break, schedule time to get outside into nature. There's a heap of evidence of why morning rituals work and how they set you up to win your day. And it's really important that each morning you relate back to this structure and create that foundation of calm in order to progress throughout your day from that foundation. Now, with each of these recommendations, I'm going to put it into practice with one of the activities. And the first practice is through the simple diaphragmatic breath. Now, most of us don't breathe properly. We're only using the top third of our lungs, when in reality, we should be breathing right down deep into our bellies. What happens when we do this is through our exhalation, our bronchioles constrict like a balloon deflating. That in turn kicks the vagus nerve into gear, and it activates that relaxation response that enables us to feel grounded, calm, and in control. So we'll give it a try now. What I'd like you to do is take your hands and just let the two middle fingers meet, and then place them right in front of your belly button. What I'll invite you to do is take a deep breath in through your nostrils, right deep down into your belly, until those two fingers slightly separate. Breathe in for a count of 4. Hold it at the top, and then exhale through your mouth for a count of 6. And that's all there is to it. That is a simple diaphragmatic breath. A 6-second exhalation activates your relaxation response and provides you with those feelings of calm and being in control. The second recommendation is to focus on the positive. Now, the reason for this is twofold. Number one, we're getting inundated with negativity at the moment in the media, through our networks, through the news, and it's a lot for us to deal with. Number two is we have a negativity bias innate within us. And our negativity bias is a neuronal hangover from our ancestors from when they had to pay more attention to the lions and tigers that were chasing them versus the positive things that would happen in their life. Because what would take place is when those negative things happened, it meant death. Whereas if positive things happened, like getting your next meal or finding a mate, it was good, but it didn't mean life or death. So that resulted in a negativity bias. And what that means is within our brain structure, we have 5 times as many negative neurons devoted to negative to 1 positive. And so we're constantly fighting that. That goes back to thinking about negative experiences are Velcro and positive experiences are Teflon. The good news is we have the power to change our negativity bias, and we can do that through a number of practices. The first one is through thinking of things that you're proud of. That elicits positive emotions, and that's a way to counteract that negativity bias. Next, I recommend thinking of what your core strengths are and how you use them each day. And if you're a leader, you can do this with your team. If you're a parent, you can use it with your children. What are you really good at, and how do you use that strength each day? The next exercise is from Professor Martin Seligman, and he's the godfather of positive psychology. What he's recognized is that at the end of each day, if you record 3 things that went well, and then why they went well, over the course of 7 days, you improve your overall life satisfaction and well-being. And start to recognize if there's a pattern there. At the end of the 7 days, look and see when things go well, why do they go well, and are the reasons why similar across each day? The next exercise is called Taking in the Good. And this is an exercise developed by Dr. Rick Hanson, who's written several books. One of my favorite which is Hardwiring Happiness. And what Dr. Hanson has recognized is that we have this ratio of 5-to-1 of negative emotions to positive emotions. However, if we savor moments and let them sink in, we can change that pathway so that we increase the number of positive neural pathways and decrease the number of negative neural pathways. The way I like to compare it is we essentially have a superhighway of negativity running throughout our brain, a 5-lane superhighway, and we have a 1-lane country road of positivity. And by doing this simple practice, we can change that and reverse it. And that practice is taking in the good. And through taking in the good, you can do it in the moment or retrospectively. And so let's do it retrospectively. If you think about a moment that brought you good feelings, brought you warm and fuzzy feelings, put a smile on your face over the last couple of days, I'd like you to think about that feeling. So you're having the experience. Then I'd like you to enrich that feeling by staying with it for a few seconds. Now I'd like you to absorb the experience, starting at the top of your head, letting that experience and those positive emotions run right through your body down to your tip of your toes. And that's it. That's all there is to it. It takes 12 to 15 seconds to go through that process, and it's been demonstrated to counteract that negative bias that we all have within us. Next, think about how you want to feel during COVID-19 and then following COVID-19. And think about those positive feelings you'd like to be encountering versus the negative feelings that you may be experiencing at the moment. And lastly is cognitive reframing. And cognitive reframing is what we're going to work on in practice. And it's essentially taking a situation that you have a response to and looking at it from a different perspective. And so within cognitive reframing, they've created a platform to go through that process. Essentially, it's A, B, C, D, E. A, B, and C being our experience of the actuating event, our belief systems that impact how we respond to that event, which are the consequences. And what you have to pay attention to here is our belief system. So our belief system has been created from the time we were babies. These are schemas that we've developed over the years based on our family, our friendships, our values, our environment, the conversations that we have, the things we read. It's essentially what we believe about the world when we look at it through the lens that we put upon ourselves. And then because of this belief system, when something happens, there are consequences to that. And that's why we all respond to different events differently. We all have our own idiosyncrasies. So what cognitive reframing does, it asks you to pause at that point and then dispute how you're feeling in your own mind. Look at it from someone else's shoes. Look at it from someone else's perspective and change what your initial thoughts are. And then look at the effect of that and see how you think differently from that situation. For example, if you're experiencing a lot of stress and anxiety at the moment from COVID-19 and you're watching too much news and you're listening to too many people within your family talk about the atrocity of what's going on, take a step back and look at the bigger picture and try opposition thinking. Try and look for the silver lining. Try and look for the things that you can personally control and then move forward from there. Some helpful reframe questions that you can utilize throughout this process include: what went right? What was positive in this situation? What are the silver linings? How can I turn this disaster into a win? What is the best way to act in this kind of situation? What if I believed the opposite? And then try to find evidence against your initial negative thought. The last recommendation I'm going to offer is gratitude. Now, gratitude is integral to our well-being, and there's actually a science behind it. And what that science tells us is that when we are grateful, when we experience the positive emotion of gratitude, we have more positive emotion, so it multiplies within us. We sleep better, we have more compassion, we have a better immune system and immune function, more optimism. We have a broader perspective. So instead of being narrow-minded within our schemas, we open our eyes up to possibility. And it ultimately enhances our relationships. So how can we practice gratitude? The recommendations that I offer are really simple, really easy to do, and extremely impactful. Number one is 30 days of gratitude. So you can do this for yourself, where you record 30 days of images on your smartphone or on your camera that you can then go back and reflect on day 30. Alternatively, if you want to do it within your family or within your team, you can get family members or team members to take a photo each day for 30 days for 30 things that they're grateful for, and then have those members present them back to the family or back to the team. Next is a gratitude jar. A gratitude jar is something that you can keep, again, for your family or for your team members, where throughout each month you write down little small notes of appreciation or gratefulness for things that different family members did or different team members did. And then at your monthly or quarterly team meeting, you can pull out the gratitude jar and read each of those things you are grateful for or you appreciate in others to those individuals in front of the rest of the family or the rest of the team. Next is a gratitude letter. Now, a gratitude letter is extremely powerful. It has an impact on both you as the person writing the letter and on the individual that you're expressing gratitude for. Now, you can write a letter to anyone. You can write it to a family member that you think, I really need to thank them and show my appreciation. You can write it to a customer. You can write it to a client. It's up to you, but it's someone who's made an impact on you personally that you want to share your appreciation for. Writing the letter is the first step, and then reading the letter is the second. If you don't have the opportunity to read the letter to the person in person, then you can send it to them in the mail. The point is that you're expressing your gratitude for what they've done, their contributions, how they made you feel, and they're receiving that appreciation on their end. Next, and you can do this either monthly or annually. Next is the weekly catch-up. So if your family or your team has a weekly catch-up, it's a good idea to start those meetings off from a place of gratitude. You can also do this at the dinner table before each meal or once a week. You can say, okay, what is everyone grateful for this week? It's a really outstanding practice. Lastly is recognizing and appreciating. And this is something that also plays into positive emotion, because we don't tend to recognize and appreciate people enough in our lives, particularly those we care about most. And so making a conscious effort to do that is key. It elevates positive emotions and it makes us focus on the positive a lot more than we typically would if we don't make it part of our regular practice. So why are positive emotions so important? When we experience positive emotions, what Dr. Barbara Fredrickson says is it leads to a broadening and building within us. And we open up our perspective. We typically have a narrow perspective when we experience negative emotions, but we have a really positive and open and broad perspective when we are experiencing positive emotions. And the possibilities are really endless. It promotes new and creative actions, ideas, and social bonds. And it also helps us build our personal well-being resources, ranging from physical to intellectual and social. And what that does in turn is it increases our own personal resilience. So the more you take the opportunity to experience positive emotions, such as gratitude, such as awe, such as love, such as contentment, inspiration, hope, the more likely you are going to become more resilient. And so taking the opportunity to intentionally focus on those positive emotions and experience those positive emotions is key. 40% of our happiness is based on our intentional activities. So if you intentionally focus and experience and savor positive emotions, the happier you will be and you will become. So some recommendations that I have for you. There are a number of apps out there on the market, and these are some of my favorites. 10% Happier. It's a meditation app, but it also has a podcast where it talks about all things positive psychology and well-being and performance. Then there's Happify. It's an app, but it's also a website, and it provides heaps of resources on psychological well-being, social well-being, physical well-being, and how to contribute to your own and others' happiness. The last two are two meditation apps that I highly recommend. The first is Stop, Breathe, and Think, and the second is Insight Timer. Both of these are free meditation apps, and they provide you with access to thousands of meditation teachers. And meditation is definitely the clearest path to establishing that sense of calm and control, and it can be done in as little as 2 minutes. The website below, www.authentichappiness.com, www.sasupenn.edu is a website that was created by Dr. Martin Seligman, and there are heaps of assessments and resources on that site as well. And I also recommend you go to my website, which is www.cortexconsulting.com.au, as it has heaps of resources in both the resource page and in the blog. If you do have any questions about anything that I've spoken about, or if you're looking for more resources or access to different assessments, please get in touch with me on my email. And lastly, I also perform coaching, virtual workshops, and mentoring. And as a part of the festival, I'm offering free coaching sessions to anyone who watches and shares the content. And I am also offering a 20% discount on coaching packages. If you're interested, please share with your network and get in touch with me on my email. But thank you so much for your time. I hope I've given you some quality information that you can use in practice. Remember to create structure in your day, to focus on those positive emotions and cultivate them within yourself, and use those practices that lead to gratitude and contentment and overall meaning and life satisfaction. Thanks so much for joining.